Chestnut Hill Technologies is a leading technology integration and cybersecurity consulting firm based in the Boston area and owned by Boston College alum. CHT provides world-class strategy and consulting to Fortune 500 and mid-cap firms throughout New England and nationally, including State Street Bank, Fidelity Investments, Whaley Computer Associates, and Amgen Pharma. Check them out at chestnuthilltechnologies.com. That's chestnuthilltechnologies.com. Okay, and with that, Mike Gualtieri here. So happy to have you on board for another Lights, Camera, Sports podcast presented by Chestnut Hill Technologies. And we're lucky enough, you know, folks, we're in the middle of summer, June. Golf is in the thick of it here, like that rough at Shinnecock. And we're lucky enough to be joined by Bradley S. Klein. He's a legendary golf guy, architect, consultant, author, former caddy. Bradley, thank you so much for joining us here on the Lights, Camera, Sports podcast. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, I just finished my tick check from Shinnecock because I was there at the Open last week, and I think I'm medically cleared to speak to you today.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, I want to learn about your career, Bradley. I've seen your articles, your books, design consultant. I know you graduated college, and then from 1976 to 86, you were on the PGA Tour as a caddy. Tell our audience who you caddied for and what your life was like back then.
I was working for a bum named Bernhard Langer, and I didn't think he had a future, but I taught him everything he knew, and he went on and proved me right. The short version is I was a grad student at University of Massachusetts for a long time. And every summer I'd flee the library and head off to caddy on tour. So I did that from 76 basically to 1983. And I caddied 6 U.S. Opens, a few PGAs, about 75 tour events. And I picked up Langer in 81, 82, briefly. I had him for a few events. And he was a gentleman. He was 24 years old back then. I think he's 67 now, but he's won every year. But he was actually, you could see right away, he was different than everybody else in terms of his focus and discipline, his skill, his short game. And, he's gone on to an incredible career. I quit caddying regularly, although I still have done some ceremonial, if you will, opening dates. I've caddied for Nicholas a handful of times for course openings and some others. But my last, I think my last caddy gig was what was then Greater Hartford Open in the mid 90s, somewhere in the mid 90s.
Yeah. Now I'm interested, just rewind. How's a UMass kid meet Bernhard Langer to caddy? How did that all come together in 1976?
Well, first of all, in those days, the tour was wide open. Back when I started caddying, the total purse for a tour event was $200,000, $250,000. Now you get that for a 9-way tie for 14th place. So the money's different. It was much easier to pick up a bag, as we would say. You'd hustle a parking lot. Once I started caddying, I was making and selling yardage books. I was working with a legendary figure named Gorgeous George Lucas. I was assembling the yardage books. I'm standing there on the range, 22 years old, selling yardage books to Trevino, Nicholas, and Arnold Palmer. So I got to know everybody very quickly. And you just sort of started talking. And in grad school, I was fluent in German. And I wrote to his agent and I arranged to meet him at the World Series in 1981 in Akron. I caddied for him in German and in meters, which was pretty demanding.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But the difference was you hustled the parking lot, you kind of set things up in advance. Nowadays, a good player is like a lifeline security. It's like having a password to an ATM machine. So, Scotty Scheffler's caddy, I think, made $5 million, probably made $4 or $5 million last year. That's an exception, but it was a great way to see golf. I started writing at that time. I met people in the industry. I started freelancing, and then once I got my doctorate and was teaching full time, I started writing partly for Golf Week magazine and others, the New York Times, Links magazine. The freelance market was also more open in those days. It's much tougher now. And I had an expertise. I had a good eye for architecture, so I kind of parlayed that. I noticed everybody else was writing about Ballesteros and Watson, and I was writing about golf courses, and there wasn't as much competition, frankly, as a
Yeah,
writer.
yeah, yeah. That's very interesting. Great segue on my next question. So I have you wrote Rough Meditations in 1997, Discovering Donald Ross in 2001, and Wide Open Fairways in 2013. Just talk about that literature and how you kind of transitioned. Though, was it a hard transition going from caddy to author?
No, because I was a trained academic. I had spent, 2 years in libraries. I wrote my dissertation on 17th and 18th century German political philosophy. I
Wow.
knew how to read Gothic type. I knew how to go through archives, and so the biography of Donald Ross was a really big effort. The other books you mentioned, Rough Meditations and Wide Open Fairways, they're more essays, whereas Discovering Donald Ross was a very detailed archival work. It took me 3 years. I spent 100 days alone in the archives at Pinehurst at the Tufts Archives. I visited every house he lived in. I spent a lot of time in Scotland. I was a member anyway at his home course, Royal Dornoch in northern Scotland, and I was spending a lot of time over there. So I really dug through. I visited probably 200 golf courses that he had done of the 410. I met people who knew him. He had died in 1948, but there were still people around, including Pete Dye and his former caddies. I met his daughter, spent a lot of time with the family. So you sort of dig in. So that was more the scholarly training that I had. And the caddying was more just an enthusiasm for the golf course, the variety of the landscape that it represents. And I was writing at the time. I became architecture editor of Golf Week. I started their international ratings platform. I had a team of 800 people who reported to me to file their reports on golf courses. So at that point, I just kind of gave up on academia. It was too much work. So I shifted, but it took me years to make that transition. My wife, who had the insurance, she had medical insurance because she was teaching. She encouraged me. So I didn't leap into it. I slid slowly over several years. I like to say that my academic income and my golf writing income kind of went like this. And at a certain point, and I was already doing a full load of academic work. I was teaching. I had written a major book with Cambridge University Press. I was lecturing all over at war colleges on international security. So I had a kind of double life, if you will.
Double life, yeah.
And, frankly, I've maintained it because I still do the academic writing. I don't grade blue books anymore. I don't teach, but I've still kept an interest in political issues. Yeah.
Now, going back to Donald Ross, we're predominantly Boston sports podcast, DC. I know has a lot of Boston ties. Can you kind of tie Donald Ross into the Boston area for our audience?
Yeah, sure. Donald Ross was born in Scotland, came over to the United States in 1899, set up at Oakley Golf Club, and then the Essex County Club, lived in Newton Center. That's where he's buried. And
just 5 minutes from BC.
Yeah, and he did a lot of courses in that area. He did 43 courses in Massachusetts. He did Braeburn, Charles River, Worcester, Salem, down on the Cape. He did Plymouth Country. He did Plymouth. He did Oyster Harbor. A lot of really fine golf courses. So he was centered there, and then he spent his summers in Massachusetts in the Boston area, and his winters, if you will, at Pinehurst Resort in North Carolina, which he started. And so he had that kind of East Coast bias. He spent a lot of time on trains. He ended up doing 410 golf courses in his career, most of them in the Northeast, the Southeast, and the upper Midwest along the Great Lakes. And there's still many of them great courses, Oakland Hills, Oak Hill up in New York,
Aronimink
as well, Seminole, Pinehurst. Yeah, did a lot of great golf courses. So I'm involved in a number of them. I'm involved right now at, I was involved in the restoration of Worcester Country Club. I'm doing Tatnuck right next door in Worcester, involved in Country Club of Rhode Island as well, Longmeadow, up in Connecticut here, where I live in the Hartford area. A number of courses, Waterbury, Wampanoag.
Wampanoag, right?
Oh yeah, I was very involved in the restoration of Wampanoag.
In,
So yeah.
in your opinion, what's your favorite Donald Ross course?
Uh,
I know
I'd have to say Wampanoag because I'm so closely tied to it. I was a member there for 9 years. I would say Wampanoag and Essex County Club, Essex County up North Shore.
And what are the ingredients? What makes a good, like what makes Wampanoag stick out above the rest, in your opinion? What makes a good Donald Ross course?
Yeah, fascinating greens, really interesting greens that vary. We saw that at Aronimink during the PGA this year.
Yes.
Really diverse greens, putting surfaces that intrigue you. And what we call a routing. Routing is a sequence of holes. They're walkable. They're readily walkable. You walk off one green, the next tee is right there. So you can get around, because he was designing in a very compact space. He wasn't spreading golf holes all over the place to maximize real estate frontage. He was making the best possible use of a tight piece of land.
You're right.
Wannamoissett's the best example. Wannamoissett's built on 95 acres, which is very tight. You can't do that anymore.
It's amazing.
It's very, very compact, and it's very old school. You just walk off the green, the next tee is right there.
Yeah, you don't need a golf cart.
No, no.
All right, Bradley, we're going to take a quick 30-second break and be right back. I want to talk some U.S. Open with you. Bradley Klein joins us on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Chestnut Hill Technologies is a leading technology integration and cybersecurity consulting firm based in the Boston area and owned by Boston College alum. CHT provides world-class strategy and consulting to Fortune 500 and mid-cap firms throughout New England and nationally, including State Street Bank, Fidelity Investments, Whaley Computer Associates, and Amgen Pharma. Check them out at chestnuthilltechnologies.com. That's chestnuthilltechnologies.com. Okay, we welcome Bradley S. Klein back into the podcast. Thank you so much. I know you mentioned you were down at Shinnecock. Got to get your thoughts on the U.S. Open, Bradley, and what was your big picture thoughts there at Shinnecock, and your thoughts on the course, of course.
Well, it's a stunning piece of land. It's enormous. There's vast space between the holes. I was a little, I'd have to say, disappointed that the USGA did the right thing and managed the golf course so that it didn't get out of control. They were very careful. I give them a lot of credit for their restraint. The average score for the tournament, I just wrote a big piece that's coming out tonight or tomorrow on firstcall.com. I think the average score for the week was 72.7. which is one or two shots lower than any of the U.S. Opens held there since 1986. You know, they were there in 86, 95, 04, and 18. I've been to every one. Actually caddied in the 86 Open.
Raymond Floyd,
yeah. There was a nor'easter the first day. But, you know, even Saturday morning at Shinnecock this year, the winds were blowing 45 miles an hour. So they had to be careful how they set it up. It's astonishing to me how long the guys hit it. The average drive this week was 315, which is the longest in the history of a U.S. Open. They're hitting short irons into 500-yard par fours. So the skill level was astonishing. I was disappointed, I have to say, in the crowd, not only for booing Wyndham Clark. That's their prerogative for whatever reason. It was a little bit cheap on their part, if you will.
Was it very noticeable on the course yourself? Yeah, you hear it on TV.
You know, for a lot of people, he's not your favorite golfer for all sorts of reasons. But frankly, by the time the back nine came around on Sunday, he was kind of a sympathetic figure, fighting not just Sam Burns. He's fighting off Sam Burns and Scotty Scheffler. He's fighting off, you know, the sort of sentiment of the crowd. So that was a very odd twist to the tournament. The other thing is, I think the logistics of that place are a little bit complicated. Getting there, getting in and out of that place, Shinnecock, the traffic is a nightmare. People fled early. They were gone by Saturday afternoon. Frankly, the folks who live in the Hamptons, they're not all that capable of cheering for anybody else except themselves, and that showed too. So there's a sort of indifference. That's not a sports community there at all.
Yeah.
You know, they're wearing high fashion. The women are wearing high heels. The guys are got the collars turned up with their cardigan sweaters, and it's not quite, you know, it's not even it's not
Not
a
Bethpage.
no, it's not Bethpage. It's not Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
You know, so in that sense, it was a little bit disappointing. I would have to say the crowd, if you will, and also the fact that one person went off on Sunday with a 6-shot lead. That's nothing like we've seen in the past. And I remember when Raymond Floyd won back in '86. At one point, halfway through the back nine, there were 9 guys tied at one over. So that was much more competitive. It got a little more competitive, obviously, this time around. But by then, some of the crowd, I think, was gone, if you will. So in that sense, just, you know, and given what New York has been through, I grew up in New York. I was a Knicks fan from way back. That was the big event for the week, whereas the Open was kind of like the, you know, the extra little dessert, if you will. So
that's crazy.
In that sense, it sort of took a second seat, if you will, a back seat to some other events going on. But the golf course is stunning. It's so demanding. And you realize how good these guys are when they're hitting shots consistently to elevated greens and stopping them. And the precision they have is just astonishing. So that I never failed to be impressed by as a golf writer and as a golf fan. So that.
And your thoughts, your brief thoughts on Wyndham Clark, obviously another U.S. Open victory for him.
Well, it takes a little bit of nerve to be able to take that 60-yard wide banana hook and land it in a fairway. Now, he was helped by the fact that the fairways were 48 yards wide, as they were in Los Angeles at LA North when he won in 2023. I don't know if he could have won on fairways that were 24 yards wide. So that kind of repetitive shot, I prefer shot makers, guys who bend the ball, who, you know, Corey Pavin types who work the ball. But those days are basically over. The golf ball doesn't really let you move the ball as much. The club face is so big. The distribution is such that it's very hard to maneuver the shot. So you sort of go with, and Scotty Scheffler does the same thing. He just hits. It's not a 60-yard wide banana fade. It's with Scheffler, it's about 20 yards, but it's the exact same shot every time. So that gets a little repetitive. And frankly, I don't think Scheffler, you know, he's number one golfer. He's very consistent. He's not as interesting or as exciting to watch as a Rory McIlroy or a Tiger Woods because he's hitting the same shot. He's just forcing that shot on, and he's good at it, but it doesn't have quite the audience kind of engagement. He's not creative.
No question.
He's not as creative. So that's the nature of modern golf, for the modern competitive golf right now, for the most part.
And now the PGA Tour, you mentioned this tournament earlier, goes north to Cromwell, Connecticut. Your thoughts on the TPC River Highlands?
Well, it's back to normal. It's a country club kind of atmosphere. It's real estate. It doesn't have any kind of special vibe to it. It's a very functional golf course. It's actually, I think, just about the shortest course they play all year.
Yeah, it's right up there.
And, you know, you got to shoot 65, 66 every day to be competitive. But they get a good crowd. They get a good, it's the biggest sport event. It's the biggest sporting event in New England, which is impressive. And they get a great field. I think they have 49 of the top 50 players in the world.
Signature event.
Other than Rory McIlroy this week. Yeah, so that's impressive. And obviously big news, which we're not going to be able to analyze in too much detail, but the tour is going to go to a kind of split competitive structure. I'd have to analyze the details, but they were announced today, which was stunning, that they're going to go to kind of a soccer model of relegation where the top 90 players are going to play in the elite events, and then a whole bunch of other players will play in a second kind of tier set of events, and there'll be some movement in between, which will be actually quite interesting to watch. So
I personally, I like it, Bradley. I think it's time. It kind of, we lull a little bit with the PGA Tour. I think it needs a little juice and a little change, and I like that idea of earning your way. I think we kind of fell away with it with the guaranteed cuts and the purses to try to counter live. But I think it's actually a good move. And we see on our screen right there, Brian Rolap. He was the CEO of the PGA Tour, but just this morning, he's named commissioner of the PGA Tour. Do you like that move?
Well, I like what they're doing in terms of a more competitive structure, for sure. Yeah. The tour got a little too comfortable.
Yes.
And so now there's going to be a little bit of anxiety. Although, when you're making that, the money that they're playing for now is so different than it's not. You're not playing for survival. You're playing for a license to cash in millions. So it's a slight difference there.
Do you still wish you caddied now? You might still wish you were caddying.
Well, the bag would have to be a little bit lighter. And frankly, I get bored watching guys hit shots for 6 days when they're getting rich. But I do love hanging out, watching shots, and watching players. If I did it 3 days a week, I could do it, maybe. But I'd have to I'd have to eat Tylenol for lunch every day to do it.
Well, I also have to, for my BC audience, I have to let everyone know Brian Rolap, new commissioner of the PGA Tour, his son, Ben Rolap, from Connecticut, just committed to play a quarterback at Boston College. So we wish him the best.
See what kind of NIL deal he gets.
Yes. We don't know how that played out. They don't really announce those things, but we'll see how he does. So he could be in the Boston area a lot next couple years coming up as well. All right, Bradley, my last question for you before I let you go. In your opinion, what makes a great golf course? What are the ingredients?
A piece of land that would be interesting to walk if there were not a golf course on it. That's actually, I think, the sort of walk in the park test is what are you looking at, the views, the setting. That's the first thing. The quality of the greens, the variety, the interest, because everybody can relate to that no matter what your handicap. So I would have to say that interesting piece of land in a great setting, and really interesting greens. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bradley S. Klein, design consultant, author, golf writer from Bloomfield, Connecticut. Thank you so much for joining us here. Talked a lot about Donald Ross as well. Really appreciate the time.
Mike, pleasure. I got to run here. I got a tea time, so to speak.
Awesome. Have a great week, Bradley. Thank you.
Thanks.
Chestnut Hill Technologies is a leading technology integration and cybersecurity consulting firm based in the Boston area and owned by Boston College alum. CHT provides world-class strategy and consulting to Fortune 500 and mid-cap firms throughout New England and nationally, including State Street Bank, Fidelity Investments, Whaley Computer Associates, and Amgen Pharma. Check them out at chestnuthilltechnologies.com. That's chestnuthilltechnologies.com. Well, thank you so much for joining us here on this podcast, Lights, Camera, Sports, presented by Chestnut Hill Technologies. I'd like to encourage you, check us out on YouTube, as well as lightscamerasports.com. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. This is Mike Gualtieri signing off.